You know, some collaborations in music are just legendary. So perfect, you can't imagine one artist without the other. But what happens when one of those perfect pairings lasts for just a single, brilliant moment in time? Well, that's the incredible story we're getting into today.
If you've ever really listened to Bob Dylan's 1976 masterpiece, Desire, you know the sound I'm talking about. It's that haunting, electric, almost mystical violin that just weaves its way through every single track, from Hurricane all the way to Isis. It's not just another instrument in the mix, it's the album's entire soul.
And that's the big question, isn't it? The violinist, Scarlet Rivera, became this overnight icon. The collaboration was hailed as pure genius, and then, poof, it was over. So this is the story of how it all happened, and the different theories on why it ended so soon.
Okay, so to understand the magic of their collaboration, you first have to hear about the unbelievable way it all started. And trust me, it's a story that sounds like it's straight out of a movie.
So, picture this. It's 1975, New York's East Village. A young violinist named Scarlet Rivera, classically trained, but with a real adventurous spirit, is walking down the street on her way to a rehearsal, violin case in hand. This quote from her just says it all. The sheer dumb luck of it. As she tells it, if she'd crossed the street just a few seconds earlier or a few seconds later, none of this would have ever happened. A car pulls up, the window rolls down, and the driver is Bob Dylan. What happened next wasn't really an audition. It was more like a trial by fire. Dylan takes her to his loft and just starts playing songs she's never heard before. And get this, he gave her absolutely nothing to go on. No sheet music, no mention of the key, no instructions at all. He just played, song after song, with this totally unreadable deadpan look on his face. It was a classic sink or swim moment.
Now, what's really interesting is what Rivera herself realized was going on. She knew he wasn't just looking for someone who could play the notes. He was testing her whole personality. Could she handle the pressure? Did she have a big ego? Would she respect his privacy? He needed to know exactly who he'd be standing next to on stage. And, well, she passed with flying colors.
And just like that, I mean, literally within a week, this random encounter on a street corner completely changed the direction of a legendary album that was already in the works.
So the original plan for the album Desire was this massive production. We're talking a gigantic sound, stacked with New York's absolute best session musicians. But after hearing Scarlet Rivera play, Dylan just scrapped everything. That gigantic band was sent home, and the album was basically re-recorded with this raw, intimate core trio. Rivera on violin, Rod Rothstein on bass, and Howard Wyeth on drums.
And here it is, the most stunning part of the whole story, right from Rivera herself. The lead instrument on the album was supposed to be guitar, played by, just Eric Clapton. But Dylan was so completely captivated by Rivera's sound that this unknown violinist he found on the street ended up replacing a rock and roll god. Just incredible.
And hey, this isn't just some tall tale. The actual recording logs from the session back it all up. You can see it right here on the list for July 30th, 1975. There's the birth of that new core group. Rob Rothstein on bass, Howard Wyeth on drums, and of course, the star of the show, Scarlet Rivera on violin. This was the trio that would define that iconic sound. Okay, so the album was a masterpiece. The tour that followed it, the Rolling Thunder Revue, is stuff of legend. So, why didn't this magical partnership keep going? Well, as you can imagine, there are a few theories.
Theory number one really centers on Dylan himself. As one fan on Reddit put it pretty bluntly, he's known for just moving on. From people, from projects, often without a word. It's just kind of his creative nature to shed his skin and keep on walking.
And right along those same lines, another fan suggested that Dylan's biggest fear is just getting stale artistically. Once he's perfected a sound or a collaboration, he almost feels this immediate need to tear it down and create something totally new. That violin sound was perfect for Desire, but for whatever was next, he needed a completely different texture.
But, hey, it wasn't all on Dylan. Rivera herself is the first to admit she was fiercely independent. She describes herself as a lone wolf, and says she intentionally kept her distance from the rest of the band. She wasn't there to hang out and be friends, she was there for the music, and she really valued her private, almost remote nature.
And, while a lot of people admire that fierce independence, some fan perspectives out there suggest that maybe that same quality could have made a long-term thing a little difficult. Here, one user is describing a reputation for being, shall we say, a bit challenging to work with.
But maybe, just maybe, framing this whole thing as a split
is the wrong way to look at it. Because after her time with Dylan, Scarlet Rivera didn't just fade away, not even close. She went on to forge her own incredible path. I mean, her legacy is just amazing. Just a year after Desire, she releases this pioneering solo album. In the 80s, she's performing as a soloist at Carnegie Hall with the Duke Ellington Orchestra. She's released dozens of albums across all kinds of genres, from Celtic music to jazz. And today, she's still performing and even honors her roots with an album of Dylan covers. Her career wasn't defined by Dylan, it was launched by him. That's a huge difference.
And maybe that brings us to the real answer. Maybe the reason the partnership didn't last is simply because it wasn't supposed to. It was a perfect, explosive, once-in-a-lifetime moment, true lightning in a bottle, and trying to recapture that, well, it would only have diminished its power.
Which kind of leaves us all with a final question to think about. When it comes to art, what really matters more? A partnership that lasts for decades, or one that burns incredibly bright for a single, unforgettable moment and ends up changing music forever?